Our next topic is compliance, which applies primarily to those who are not licensed. Compliance, as it suggests, is all about ensuring people and companies comply with legislation. We need to ensure that those who are not licensed do not practice the professions or use the restricted titles. Compliance or enforcement typically applies to those who are not currently licensed with us, but there are situations where license holders can also be non-compliant. Our compliance process is triggered when unlicensed practice or improper use of title is detected by us or reported to us. Once again, it is the Act that provides the basis for compliance efforts. The Act defines the practices, engineering, and geoscience and restricts those practices to licensed firms and individuals. While the practices of engineering and geoscience are clearly defined in the Act, and the definitions can play a big role in identifying noncompliance, finding someone practicing without a license can be difficult to do. Unless the practice becomes public for some reason, Paganel may never learn about it. The practice of engineering as defined under the Act is shown here, and I'm going to be quiet for the next 20 seconds or so to give you time to read and absorb it. As you can see, it is broad and encompasses all aspects of engineering. However, as you can also see, there is no mention of stamping documents in this definition, nor, as you will see shortly, is it mentioned in the geoscience practice definition. You wouldn't believe how many people think they are not really practicing the professions because they equate practice and the need for a license with the stamping of documents. I worked in an environment for over 20 years where I used engineering judgment and skills meeting this definition daily. While I didn't stamp anything in those 20 years, I still required a license to practice my profession. The definition of geoscience takes a similar format, and I'll give you another extended pause for this one. Again, it is very broad and all-encompassing, but there is no mention of stamping documents. Any entity, individual, or company that offers the services of a professional engineer or geoscientist to the public is required to have a permit to practice. For compliance purposes, the public is anyone outside the entity that is offering the service. All other provincial/territorial regulators except Quebec have an equivalent to our permit to practice. Some are called Certificate of Authorization or Certificate of Compliance. There must be a named member in responsible charge taking overall responsibility for each profession offered by the permit. In contrast, a competent member is enlisted for each of the disciplines offered by the permit holder. Even a sole proprietor needs a permit to offer services to others, unless they are a contract employee to a single client. All permit holders also require professional liability insurance. This requirement offers protection to the public in the case of professional errors or omissions. Use of title is something that we also police, and the titles are protected by the sections of the Act noted here. The protected terms that can only be used if you're licensed with Paganel include professional engineer, BEng, professional geoscientist, PGO, geophysicist, geochemist, geologist, engineering, and engineer. There are some exceptions to the use of the title for long-standing, well-established trades, such as marine engineer, sound engineer, or stationary or power engineer. Restrictions on use of protected titles and terms extends to job titles, including those on business cards and in email signatures. When we learn about situations of unlicensed use of title, our compliance process is triggered. But you may ask, how do we generally learn about it? We have several mechanisms to help us identify noncompliance issues, including those listed here. We'll take a quick look at each of these individually. Out-of-province reporting is an information exchange among Canadian regulators where registrants in each jurisdiction are showing an address in a different jurisdiction if a member registered in another province or territory is showing an address in NL. We will be notified by our counterparts and we will check our database to see if they are licensed here. If they are not licensed here, we will contact them to ensure they are not practicing in NL without a license. Our typical results are that a third of them become licensed, a third are only working remotely and don't need to be licensed here, and a third are dropped for lack of evidence. We also monitor documents that are released or published requiring a professional engineers or geoscientists sign off, including National Instrument 43101 reports for reporting mineral discoveries, and 51101 reports for oil and gas discoveries, and environmental assessment bulletins on NL projects. We check out people signing off on the report as qualified persons and research other projects to see who is working on them. If they aren't licensed, we follow up. The process is not always effective because typically work has been completed by the time the reports are generated, but it makes them aware for the next time, and most comply if they come back for future work. We have not been finding repeat offenders in the past few years. LinkedIn is searched for protected titles and the names checked against our database. Membership directories such as the Board of Trade and NOAA are reviewed, and their members who list engineering or geoscience services offerings are checked against our database. In both cases, those not in compliance are contacted. Over the years, there are progressively less infractions found, indicating the process is working. When we see a news article or other information on a new project, Paganel makes the proponents aware of the need for licensure. We will meet with them to explain processes, attempting to avoid noncompliance before it occurs. Sometimes noncompliances arise related to annual renewals. Our database tracks payment of fees and submissions of professional development reports during annual renewal. Those not complying with these mandatory requirements are automatically suspended from practice early in the new year. We also track corporate professional liability insurance expiry dates through the database and will suspend a permit holder on expiry. Warnings are sent in advance. Even though they have been suspended and notified, they may still be practicing, but now without a license. We typically follow up multiple times with them to get them back into a compliant situation. Our final internal trigger comes from our individual application process. On their application, applicants must declare whether or not their employer will be offering services outside their company, leading us to advise the company of the requirement for a permit to practice. The final area is personal reporting. We occasionally receive reports from Paganel members and the general public if they notice unlicensed people advertising services, documents not properly authenticated, or non-permit holders offering services to the public. To wrap up this section, we want to advise you that for compliance purposes, anonymous reporting is accepted, unlike discipline cases where written and signed allegations are required. These